Hello, people. This is Mac with Mac Commentary and also my guest, Bob. How are you today, Bob?
Doing fine, thank you, Mac.
I want to welcome everyone to another show. Yesterday, I did one about reparations, and today we're going to follow up on that particular one I did yesterday. You know, Bob, there's a lot of talk out here about reparations, but it's not a lot in the sense the way it should be. When I say a lot of talk, I mean, I think people using reparation like they use the race cards, uh,
Uh-huh.
to make money off of it, just to put something out there to give people hope and don't try to follow through with what it is. You know how they used to teach you how to hit a baseball at the bat or to playing golf. They tell you got to follow through, right? You don't just swing and and stop. You got to take it all the way through to make sure that you keep that ball straight and long down the field, right? The fairway. That's the same thing in baseball. But here, a lot of people are talking about reparations, and mostly a few politicians, when I want to say a lot. And you have other people as well. But you, when I think as reparations begin to come out and unfold itself, Bob, I think there'll be a lot of negative things that'll come out with reparations, such as what the side effects and etc. And how reparations are going to be distorted and everything. I was reading an article that was printed back in 2014 by, you're pretty sure you heard of David Fromm, right? And he talks about a lot of the issues with reparation and how it couldn't work and to a certain extent, and how the question of who qualifies will become even more contested and embittered. The program will expand to additional groups. I mean, he lays a fairly decent argument, but it's not concrete. And I'll read something that he wrote here, Bob. Within only a very few months of the implementation of the Philadelphia Plan, preferences of various kinds, and we're talking the Philadelphia Plan, we're dealing with contractors, you get a certain amount of contracts, 10% of whatever should go to blacks. And so what he's saying is only a few months of the implementation of the Philadelphia Plan, preferences of various kinds were extended to women, Hispanics, and other groups. With any program of reparations, likewise, other claimants will come forward. If African Americans are due payment for slavery and subjugation, what about Native Americans? I'm gonna just stop right there, Paul. Now, Native Americans, they, Native Americans can go to school anywhere in these United States that they feel they want to. You know what I mean? They got a lot of different options out there. They got all these casinos now. They don't pay any taxes. They got, even though their reservation may not be the top of the line, but that's a whole different ball game. They got the Indian Bureau that deals with Native America. Where's our Negro Bureau? If you want to get to that point. But anyway, he said that the Native American, they lost the whole continent. What about Mexican Americans who were deprived by the Mexican-American War of the right to migrate into half their former country? Japanese Americans, not the Japanese Americans, they were given $20,000 each who were interned during World War II. Chinese Americans, the victim of coolie labor and the Oriental Exclusion Acts. Members of these groups may concede that they were not maltreated in the same way as African Americans and may not be entitled to exactly the same consideration. But if Black Americans are entitled to almost $1 trillion in compensation, Coates suggests a figure of $34 billion a year for a decade or two, surely these other maltreated groups must be entitled at least to something. Well, we're going to have stuff like that coming out, Bob, but that's that's par for the course, you know. What we should be focusing on right now is trying to get people and politicians and leaders out there to push forth this agenda for reparation. And as I was stating earlier to you, Bob, what type of leaders do we really have out here that when we have a HR 40 that's been in the House for 30 years and never been voted on by the House of Representatives, what type of black leaders do we have, or even white leaders or Democratic leaders that we have when they have had the House, even with the black president, and they never push forward any of these type of reparations bills like that? So do we really have any leadership, Bob?
Is that the question back?
Yeah, that's the question.
Well, I've been thinking about this reparations circumstance, and I've concluded that the Negroid in America is satisfied with second-class citizenship, and because this reparations bill that's been put forward by Representative Congress Lady Cori Bush is probably one of the most significant pieces of legislation that has been put forward since the Emancipation Proclamation and the civil rights activity of the 60s. But you don't see that kind of excitement among the Negroids, even the so-called leadership that you were questioning about the legislation. And I've concluded that the reason that you don't, or that we don't, is because we as Negroids have accepted the fact that we are second-class citizens in this country of America, and that's the way it's going to be, and that's it. So why get ourselves all worked up on something that the massa is not going to allow us to have? If I look back over my understanding of what it means to be an American, I've come to conclude that, if you're a Caucasoid American, you get recognition all over the world. If you're a Negroid American, you get recognition nowhere. I mean, we've got a continent of 54 countries that are ruled by Negroid Americans, and I mean by Negroids, and it is pretty much at the lowest rung on the totem pole as far as countries go. The leadership of the countries of Africa get no respect. And why is that? Because Negroids all over the globe have accepted the fact that we are a second-class race. And why is that? Why do we? Because we have been brainwashed into thinking that the melanin in our skin makes us an inferior race. So, and we accept it. I mean, we don't do we if if the people could recognize the fact that here's an opportunity with Res 414 to step up at least financially and get rid of that wealth gap that exists because of our second class citizenship between the Caucasoid and the race, the Negroid. We would be excited about that. We would be doing something about it, but we don't. It's because we don't. I think one simple question needs to be asked: of all of those who would have some understanding of what the question is. And that is, would you want $350,000 in your checking account to borrow or in your savings account to borrow? Or would you want it just put in your mailbox in a check to borrow because of reparations? And I would venture to say that 50% of us would say, "Oh no, I don't want that. I don't need that," because we have accepted the fact our thinking has been stunted by the uh, condition under which we've lived since we were brought here. We don't think for ourselves, and we don't act for ourselves. We always wait for the Caucasoid to give us a signal when to move. Uh, if he doesn't shoot the starting gun, the race never happens. And here, I'll say this: the Caucasoid has an opportunity to really be the leading guy among all of these 40 million plus Negroids in America. The president, the Caucasoid president, all he would have to do is make one mention that reparations are right for America to provide to descendants of slaves. If he just made that statement, all things would change, and you'd be surprised. It would be like when Lincoln declared that there would be an Emancipation Proclamation. Slaves got excited. Others got excited, and others got angry. And you would have a same situation today, but it won't happen because those leaders that you're talking about have accepted, and they've allowed their acceptance to filter down to those of us out here on the street. The fact that they are second class citizens, and it's okay to be second class in America if you're a Negroid. That's my take, Mac.
Well, that is that is that's really a shame, Bob. You know, it's just that someone commented on the video yesterday that his name was Dewana Masha. He said, "I think we should not vote for anybody until we get money." You can't say it any better succinctly in a simple than that, Bob. I think that's where the problem comes at. We are not organized, Bob. We had some semblance of organization during the civil rights movement, etc. But we no longer have that. We no longer have that togetherness where we can work in harmony and work towards a goal. And there are reasons for that, and I think, as we pointed out on different occasions here, I think most blacks that can get things like this going, they are pretty satisfied. So therefore, you take the guy that's in the hood trying to eke out a living day in, day out. He's not going to get out there and push for any reparations. It's going to take the ones that he elected as representative to go out there, or their community leaders to get out there, community activists to get out there and take the bull by the horn. But that's what has to happen, and we're not having anybody step up to that plate that has the influence to be able to do that. You had, for instance, Bob Johnson, the founder of BET, who came out and said blacks should get $300,000+ each for about $14 billion, $14 trillion. He came out with that. And then now you have Miss Corey Bush, she has come out with that. We have Dr. Darity of Duke University. He has made that statement as well. And these people are pretty much heavyweights here in this particular area. Especially Dr. Darity has been an economics professor. So, but I think what is happening, Bob, is that not that we so much feel that we're second class. I think people are complacent, and you do get some recognition when you travel. How, I mean, from other people in other countries. I remember being in Bangkok. Guy walks up to me on the street. He recognized for whatever reason that I was an American. How did he know? I don't know. But he told me that he knew Dr. Martin Luther King. He had heard him speak. And I remember being in Germany once, and this woman came up to me and said, "You resemble Muhammad Ali." So I don't know. I mean, just by some recognition or something, they associate blacks when they travel like that, at least with some other famous black in the America. So I know that you have people thinking too that reparations will not help blacks, and this is one of that they shouldn't get the money because they're just going to blow it. And I want to read something that this guy David Frum wrote. He said, affirmative action characterizes some parts of the American economy more strongly than others, and in particular, the public sector more than the private sector. This pervading fact has shaped the growth of the black middle class. Black Americans are 30% more likely than non-blacks to work in the public sector, where they earn higher wages relative to white Americans than they do in private employment. This strategy brought security to many black families in the years between 1970 and 2008. Now, Bob, right there, he's going to go on and say some other stuff, but I just want to put a footnote in here. This is that if each black had $350,000, there'll be many of those blacks who would pool their resources. I'm sure it will happen, Bob, to create their businesses in their communities, which will also create jobs in a private sector, the same as the whites. As you recall, as I recall in particular, when I came to Detroit, everybody was mobilizing, talking about the whites, what they call the white flight, out of Detroit into the suburbs. And they were leaving behind factories. But all of a sudden, you saw those factories slowly die down and relocated out into the suburbs because they were created to support their own. And this is something that we have not done or learned to do. And we've had the money to do things like this, but we haven't had the structure in order to set it up. And we do have the people with the abilities that can do that. But I think a lot of people are more focused on being an American, the individual aspects of being an American, and not the community aspect of being an American. Like in many African places where they have a community, they have their villages, and everybody work in that village, even though they might have their conflicts there. But this guy Fromm went on to say, he says, but their strategy came at a cost. First, the strategy tethered black economic advancement to the growth of government. That growth has become ever more fiercely contested in recent years. Since 2008, it has abruptly halted and reversed. Second, the strategy detoured talented people away from the higher risk and rewards of the private sector, and especially from entrepreneurship. Black Americans are less than half as likely as white to own their own businesses. Now, this guy got This guy he's just putting stuff here, Bob. I mean, what? I mean, say uh, you can say anything you want about the talent, the blacks. Many blacks couldn't get the jobs in the white private sector. Even today, you have a problem maybe getting in there, unless you're the top of the cream of the blacks, you know. But they don't have to be the top of the cream of the whites to get in there. And as far as entrepreneurship, I mean, first you got to be able to have some aspect to capital, and that's the biggest issue right there. And, and that's why blacks are less than half as likely as whites to own their own business. A reparation plan is likely to prove even more distorted, he states. If paid to individuals as an income stream, reparation would disincentivize work. If paid to individuals as a lump sum, reparation would expose one of America's least financially sophisticated populations to predatory practices that would make subprime lending scam socially responsible by contrast. Now, these guys just want to make a whole lot of assumptions there. True enough, if you did the same thing with whites and gave each one of them a certain, went into the Appalachians or the down there downriver from you, Bob, and gave those people the same thing, many of those people are going to blow that money as well. That's not the point. The point is that this is their inheritance, and people get inheritance every day and blow it. I mean, real inheritance from family members. So what they do with that money, that's their business. How do you see that, Bob?
Well, I'm becoming more and more of a realist in terms of the relationship between the Caucasoid and the Negroid in America, and as a result, all of these little nuances that happen in that relationship make a lot more sense to me. The Caucasoid never intended, nor does he intend, for the Negroid to be on the same rung of the ladder as he's on. He he wants you to be 64%, at least 64% behind him in the race. And that's the way it is. For every dollar that a Caucasoid makes in whatever method he makes it, whether he owns his own business or whether he works for an hourly wage, the Negroid makes about 64 cents to the dollar. So you're a third of the way behind in the race. If you looked at that as a 100-yard dash, uh, when the race starts, he's on the 70 yard line, and you're on the 40, and he's only got 30 yards to go to finish the race, and you got another 60. So when I look at the circumstance that, and then couple that with the fact that I don't feel in that race, that 100-yard dash, that I have a chance to win anyway, which I don't, because how can I start a third of the way back? He's 2/3 ahead of me, and uh, he's he's a third of the way ahead of me, and I'm 2/3 of the way back. How can I expect to make up that unless I've got jets on? So when I see the reality, and then I see the so-called leadership that's supposed to be providing me advice on how to be a good American, I'm quite pessimistic. I think the names that you gave of Dr. Darity and Miss Bush and Bob Johnson, Mr. Johnson, those are representative people but they won't be able to galvanize the kind of interest on the part of second class Americans, Negroids, to do what we need to do to get this reparation situation to our advantage. It won't happen. And so I'm becoming more and more pessimistic, I might say, about our ability to understand, first of all, what this means to us about closing that wealth gap, and then secondly, our leaderships being committed to helping us to understand what that means for us as a race of people, because we don't see ourselves as a race. You know, we see ourselves as second class Americans, and we've accepted that, and that's just the way it is.
Well, Bob, I don't quite think that most blacks see themselves as second class. I think it's the other way around, that perhaps the Caucasoids see blacks as second class, but I think many blacks have a lot of self-esteem today, and much more so than it was at back during slavery and during Jim Crow era. Uh, Blacks don't, they don't. I mean, I see it the way they carry themselves and they act. Uh, a lot of them are not so. They are uncouth. A lot of them, true enough, but I don't think they see themselves as second class anymore, like they are inferior. Put it like that. I think that the Caucasoids wants to. They continue to see us as second class citizens. And 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 it's just they see us in so many different ways that it's just hard to say how they actually see us. I don't know, but the thing I do know is that we, as a group of people in these Americas, we've got to come together and we got to fight for our self-preservation. I talked about the fact that we're going to lose in the end from all the other people coming to this country. Like, for instance, uh, this guy by the name of Vivek Ramaswamy, he's running for president. And this guy here, he's from, he was born in the United States, but his parents were from the high caste system of the Brahmas of India. And he grew up a very wealthy kid, and he started a biotech company, and he's gotten wealthy. And now he wants to be the president, but what he wants to do is do away with affirmative action and all these other things. And none of these people seem to realize, Bob, these minorities like this guy realize that the way was paved for them by the blood, tears, and the sweat of Black Americans. I mean, because I don't even remember any of those people being over here in the 50s and 60s. If they were, they were very well hidden somewhere. But they received the same type of treatment from whites as blacks did during that time, if they were here. I know they did, because I've seen signs of that era that says no Negroes or Mongoloids allowed to move into this neighborhood. So I mean, so they were treated just as bad, but somehow or another, after we went out there and fought to get our civil rights and our so-called freedom, they seem to have gotten there to surpass us. And like Dr. Anderson, Claude Anderson said, they will bury us if we are not careful. And I think we gone past that period now. Somehow or another, we're going to have to do some digging out right now, because I think we've already been buried, especially when you got guys like this Ramaswamy comes around and talk about, blacks, he going to do away with affirmative action, and he wrote this book called Woke. I don't haven't read that book, haven't even seen a review on it, but to me, it's something negative. I can tell you that much. And I don't know how this guy expected he's going to be elected president. I mean, I really don't. I don't even know why he's wasting his time and money there, personally, because nobody's going to vote for him. But they are so emboldened now. They got emboldened because they got a half Indian as vice president of this country, and then they've got Indians who they selected as CEOs of Google, Facebook, Panera Bread, and all these other companies out there that they got the smartest ones that they could find. Then they put them there because they can tolerate them more, so I guess they can tolerate the blacks, you know. And then they're also emboldened by the fact they got an Indian prime minister of England. So now they think they got a big swagger about themselves, Bob. And I'm just talking about the Indians. And but I'm not saying all of them are like that. I mean, matter of fact, I got some very close Indian people that I'm familiar with, and so. But guys like this guy, and I've ran into a few of these guys, they are very haughty and very arrogant. And that's what this guy here exhibits when he's out there on the campaign trail right now. Well, Bob, I guess we're going to try to see what's going to happen here. And hopefully we got to somehow or another, we got to get out here and set up some type of grassroots type of efforts to get people fired up, get people to write in their Congress people, get them to say, okay, why aren't you people out there pushing for the HR 40 to be voted on? Why aren't you getting more people behind House Resolution 414? Why aren't you people doing that? You're 60. I'm talking about the blacks. You're 60 strong there in Congress, and you got a couple in the Senate. And I mean, you people should be out there pushing for this. For you might be doing well, but think about all of us. And I said, even though you think you're doing well, you can go somewhere and you're going to be experience what it is to be black. And until we get, as Dr. Claude Anderson said, until we get the economic power, until we get our base set up with a powerful economic base, we're going to still just be, as you say, Bob, many of us will still be the N word, but a bigger N word. But I want to thank you for coming on today, Bob.
Well, thank you for having me back.
And I appreciate all of your comments, and I hope that people take them to heart. And I hope that we can get people to writing and contacting their Congress people and getting them motivated to really fight for slavery reparations. And with that, people, I want to thank you for tuning in. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Have a great day.